Hello, everybody, and thank you for the flexibility on allowing me to do this in this format. I'm gonna have to rush through the presentation a little bit. I encountered problems as I was uploading. Turns out that videos have to be under 15 minutes if you're unverified on YouTube. That's what happens when you're not a content creator. I need to start getting into that apparently. So let's do this quick. I picked the last question on the syllabus, partly because I figured that there was not enough time this week to go into it. Just a small suspicion based on precedent, but also because while at first glance it seemed like a very humorous or chill question to ask, upon doing the readings, it became very clear that once humor is less understood as a valid and beautiful human emotion, but rather as a weaponized tool for controlling public opinion, there are many things that are definitely worth saying and analyzing in the context of humor, wartime, diplomacy, and opinion management. So let's look into why humor at first. And while traditionally we would understand humor as a psychological state characterized by positive emotions of amusement that emerge at the recognition of some incongruency or a violation of expectations, we're more likely going to be looking at humor today as a tool for the critical mitigation of perceptions of fatigue during war contexts and for the strengthening of survival capacity of state sovereignty during these conflict scenarios. The reason why humor can be so efficient in this context or for information management or opinion management in general is because it can facilitate a connection with audiences by engaging them both cognitively and emotionally. So cognitively, humor can enhance message retention by requiring audiences to decode and interpret cultural references. In this way, information is going to last longer in their heads. Emotionally, it's going to foster positive sentiments that humanize the communicator. So even when we don't know exactly who is behind the computer that is communicating something, even though it's an institutional account, we're still going to have a sense of humanization for it, and that's going to make our message more appealing. And then lastly, socially, there is also a very important impact there because it can create shared experiences, solidarity, and a group identity. So there are many benefits for why humor can be a very useful tool in the promotion of public opinion controlled by a given agenda or state. So from this angle, what do our authors do? They look at a total of 45 memes that start in 2022 and last throughout a period of the ongoing Ukrainian war, and they aim to explain how humor can serve as a relational and context-specific strategic narrative for international political communication. They do this by considering two angles that are derived from quantum social theory, QST, meme superposition and meme entanglement. So let's go over these three concepts really quick. QST argues that reality is not fixed and predetermined, but rather that it depends on the interaction of an observer and the observed, and it can be more accurately described by predictions and probabilities. So entities, be them individuals, groups, or states, are not independent of each other, but are entangled, and they are connected and influenced by each other's in complex and nonlinear ways. So when taken into mean diplomacy analysis, what authors Bjola and Coplen identify are conceptual tools that can more precisely and dynamically account for how meaning is generated, circulated, and renewed. In other words, what makes memes so efficient at conveying these narratives and at promoting a sense of reality that is more agreeable to what we want to do. So we have superposition, which in essence is the coexistence of meaning. Different meanings within a single memetic unit or meme is one of these two characteristics, and the other is entanglement, or the relational embedding that a meme can have within a given cultural narrative. So memes can carry more than one message at a time, and they can relate to more than one cultural background, whether that is specifically oriented towards our more immediate surroundings or the broader ones, because this study looks at English memes and it's oriented towards understanding how that was used for international publics and their public perception of the Ukrainian war, particularly that of the Allies. So let's look at how the levels of superposition and entanglement can have an impact on on the efficiency of memes. Let's look at the highest and the lowest. Again, the run time. When we look at the highest one, those memes with highest degrees of superposition and entanglement are going to be adaptable, well connected, and are basically going to have the highest impact because they have a big potential to engage multiple audiences. Not only that, but they're also going to be influenced are going to be influenced and are going to be influencing other memes. They're going to be able to generate this network of knowledge, and this high impact is also going to show a strong potential to engage with a broader audiences, appealing to the spectrum of individual and cultural backgrounds within the audience that the many meanings that this meme is going to carry is going to target. The stark opposite, when a meme doesn't have superposition or entanglement, that's going to be memes with very narrow meaning, very isolated incidents. They're not going to be able to be replicated, or they're not going to linger, or for the regular vernacular, they're not going to go viral very much soon or very much well. They're going to have very limited potential for widespread dissemination. They're going to have very limited potential for engagement, and they're probably just going to die off very quick. You can probably tell I've placed different warjacks throughout the presentation. Some of those warjacks you probably recognize more than others, right? And that is because some of these had a wider impact within the communities in which you were all a part of, that engaged with that particular meme, and others are probably just things that you probably never even saw before, because I actually did find a couple that I had not seen before. So anyhow, let's discuss the findings that the authors propose after analyzing these 45 memes and after looking into how these two characteristics can shape up the efficiency of these memes. There are three essential key findings that they promote. Let's contextualize it first. Meaning is not fixed. That's what we learn out of this experiment. It emerged relationally through the ambiguity, effect, and interpretative entanglement of the messages we try to convey, the platforms through which we communicate, and the communities that we seek to engage. So it's more of a, I guess we could term it in one way or another, a living mechanism of sorts. Communication can be shaped. It's not static, it's not concrete, it's not fixed. And that is one of the best spaces that humor can exploit in that sense. So there are three important findings in that angle. First, ambiguity can be a powerful asset. Memes are intentionally ambiguous. They can be very humorous, but they're still touching on very serious things. They are very critical about what they're discussing. Let's face it, sometimes we laugh, but we laugh in pain about what we're laughing at, right? So they're also playful. They tend to have this broader appeal and reduce the risk of backlash across the publics, because you are communicating something deadly serious, but you're communicating in such a way that people are going to laugh about it. So that helps a lot make people be in charge of the way in which they want to receive and understand a message, rather than us telling them how they should be taking it. And that is a very powerful asset when it comes to the humoristic nature of memes. Now, second, emotional tone does matter, and emotional timing does also matter. Humor, especially in times of crisis, can humanize official communications and maintain engagement during times of fatigue. However, no matter the benefits, because it can also reinforce narratives of resilience, creating more support amongst those not directly involved with a conflict, timing and contextual awareness are key. The authors note that in times where big adversity was taking place, it was definitely not the time for sharing it, and even when they attempted it, the results were not the ones that were expected or that were shown under normal conditions. And third, memes work best within ecosystems. Ukraine's meme diplomacy, in the case study we looked at today, operates within a broader communicative niche that involves institutions, outlets, society, and that dynamism, particular to this community, would not be easily replicated among publics outside this environment. I.e., if you take the memes that these guys shared and you put them in the middle of a Bolivian street, they're probably not going to cause much of an impact. We need to understand what we're talking about. That relates again to the notion of entanglement. So the dynamism cannot be easily replicated, but in that sense, it highlights the collaborative nature required by these messages so that they can be amplified. And there are two limitations that are important within this study, and one is that it is difficult to assess if a mimetic approach to opinion management can have any influence on strategic decision making. In layman's terms, would you see a president backing off something because a meme told him to? Or maybe the opposite, right? Engaging into something because a meme is telling them that they wouldn't. Um, yeah, let's add that as a fourth question, actually. That sounds kind of funny. So that is one, but the authors also acknowledge that they did not account for any other type of explanation outside of the framework they looked at. For example, one of these could be if the intention of the memes was probably to amplify the account's visibility. The memes that they studied were all shared by official governmental accounts, and maybe when shared in those spaces, that the viral nature of these memes generated enough algorithmic visibility for a time where more serious messages needed to be conveyed. So there is also that possibility on that, and it would probably be more context specific, but it's still an interesting angle to keep in mind. So as we read, or as I started reading about this, I could not stop thinking that maybe I should add this as a bit of a critical consideration for us to think about. Because are we talking about meme diplomacy? Are we talking about propaganda? Or are we talking about both? Is meme diplomacy novel, or are we witnessing propaganda permeate into transnational contexts? It's a globalized world. It would make perfect sense that now we're seeing propaganda also become transnational. David Welsh is a very known author in the propaganda studies field, and he denotes two very specific instances. Since around 1622, it was primarily a tool for the spread of religious doctrine. But in World War I, we see a massive shift of systematic state-organized propaganda campaigns that are everywhere. Press, film, posters, censorship, and it's not just managing public opinion within authoritarian states, but it's also a part of the campaign or the efforts of democratic states as well. So it becomes a critical policy, especially during wartime. So in that angle, can we learn something from the study of propaganda and how this field, propaganda studies, can influence our analysis of meme diplomacy? There are some important takeaways in the ways in which propaganda has been analyzed throughout the ages. Especially, if we were to name a few, propaganda is ethically neutral and fundamentally about power, persuasion, and opinion management. It reinforces existing beliefs more than it converts new ones. So you kind of have to stay on one side already to be fed into the further bias machine. Um, yeah, we can discuss vernacular later, but yeah, let's call it bias for now. And it operates across different truth spectrums. There are lies that are going to be promoted, there are half-truths, there are selective truths that are going to be promoted. The kind of things that propaganda wants you to see is exactly the reason why it is an efficient tool for controlling opinion. There is also an important element here that relates to how much an actor wants to remain visible in their efforts. It has also adapted to technological changes. It's gone from radio into film, into TV, and into the internet. And as we're seeing social media become so prevalent in our lives, they have probably, they're like perfect lovers. You have one thing that requires virality to disseminate, and you have the other one that requires something viral so that it can remain, so it can keep you hooked. It's the perfect toxic match. And we have seen historically that propaganda has been inseparable from warfare, national strategies, and the media. So there is a lot of similarities within both concepts of meme diplomacy and propaganda that I think could merit a further study into how we should be conceiving this form of digital diplomacy. And I'll leave you with the following questions. Is there a way we could measure impact of memes on strategic decision making? Are meme diplomacy and propaganda any different from each other, or can we subcategorize them, maybe one inside the other? And lastly, can governments or those working for governments make an ethical case for the implementation of opinion management tactics, whether during times of war or including during times of peace? Thank you very much for your attention, and I hope you enjoy this quick presentation.